This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up this week, with domestic violence incidents apparently on the rise, we find out about SPAVO, the work of the Association for the Prevention and Handling of Domestic Violence.
Various officials and others talk about violence and the services that we provide. And we believe that the problem was always there. But now they speak more and they ask for help, more victims.
And a strategic dialogue on the future of agriculture in the European Union is launched in Brussels.
We all have the same sense of urgency that things have to improve and that we have to find a new way forward and common and lasting solutions for the problems that you're all very much aware of.
At the end of last year, figures were released that showed that there's been a worrying increase in domestic violence incidents in Cyprus. In fact, in the last 4 or 5 years, it seems they've more than doubled. So we're joined on this week's programme by the president of the association SPAVO, that is the Association for the Prevention and Handling of Violence in the Family. Maria Kushu is with us. Maria, thank you very much for joining us. First, before we get into the figures that I mentioned just now, can you tell us a little bit about the history of SPAVO and what it does?
The organization started actually officially in 1990. It's now almost 34 years that is offering their services to the people. Actually started with a helpline, and in 1994 we introduced the 4 digits number, the 1440. That is the helpline, that we have our employees, that they are all social workers and psychologists, that they answer so they can support the victims that they are calling and to help them to feel secure, to feel, most of it secure, and to help them to get out of this, that they suffer, let's say.
You did open a house, didn't you, a few years ago? I remember going to its inauguration. So you've now got premises where people who actually need to physically escape abuse can come and you help them.
We have, these are the shelters that we have for abused women and their children, that they stay in-house. Usually are the victims that their life is in danger, that they get in the shelters. In the moment, we have one shelter in Nicosia, one shelter in Paphos, and one in Limassol. And now, with the beginning of the year, now we are going to start a shelter in Larnaca also, that is going to accommodate people from the free area of Famagusta. When we don't have place, sometimes the numbers, and during pandemic it was too much, we rented other places and we put the people that they needed to get in the shelters. And of course, it's under our supervision always from our employees. Also in the shelters we have now, we employ teachers. We have a childcare program to support the children and facilitate women to enter the labor market if they want it, because they are free to work if they are in the shelters. And accept the shelters, accept the programs that we have. And if you want me, I can go through a little bit with the programs that we have.
Okay.
Except the helpline that we have, the 1440. We have the individual appointments for victims, that is for counseling, psychological support. And this is be done by the psychologists and the social workers. As I said, the shelters. We have the program for the perpetrators also, Proteas, that is to help the people that they you know, how I can say it now.
Is it sort of anger management?
Yes, anger management, and it does not act as a substitute for punishment, but helps to reduce the risk and the frequency of occurrences.
Can I ask you about the punishment that you talk about here? Because I'm not sure that there are very many successful prosecutions. Now, is that because a lot of the victims decide they don't want to testify against the perpetrator? Or is there a lack of follow-up? We've been reading about this recently, a lack of follow-up by the police sometimes.
Sometimes the women, they go to the police to accuse their abusers. Mm-hmm. Yes, but at the end, and sometimes when they arrive at the court, they withdraw. And this is for many reasons. Because they are scared, because is the economical reason, the biggest. We believe that if the husband or the companion loses his job, they don't have the economical support. So this is, and sometimes it takes long. Some they feel ashamed to go to the court, and we face this problem. And some of our victims, even if they stay in the shelters, they go back to the perpetrators.
Yeah, it's a very complicated psychological thing, isn't it?
Yes,
but can we talk about funding? A lot of the services that you've just mentioned cost a lot of money. Where does the funding for all of this come?
The funding is, most of it is from the government. I can say the 70% is from the government. We are supported by the Deputy Ministry of Welfare. And we have a small amount for the Ministry of Justice. And of course, we make our efforts to raise money. Yes. And now that we managed to have, and it's a milestone for SPAVO this year, because we started the operation of the mobile information unit. That is a small car, a van, let's say, that is for where we are going to use for prevention actions, and we go out of the cities, we go to the country for the villages, focusing on preventing interventions. And this project was funded by the Butterfly Foundation by Imperial. We try and we make a lot of things, and thanks to the people, they support us for this. But the main is from the government.
Okay, and let's just talk, if we may. At the beginning, we talked about the increase in the reported cases over the last, 4 or 5 years. Now, I think we all know that during the lockdown, when people were, in a sense, forced to stay in close proximity to their partners and their families, even people who were not abusers often found it very stressful. But that's over now. So what do you put this increase in both physical and psychological violence over the last few years down to?
Yes, it's tremendous how it was increased, but we believe the problem was always there. Now they speak more. They ask for help more because, a lot of various officials and others talk about violence and the services that we provide. And we believe that the problem was always there. But now they speak more and they ask for help, more victims.
That in its sense then, Maria, is, we could say, a win for your campaigns to get people not to be ashamed but to speak out. Because certainly even 10 years ago, families would sweep this under the carpet because they were ashamed or embarrassed that other people would find out, weren't they? That's changed then.
Yes, absolutely. It has changed, even if we face this problem still. I mean, a lot of families, they cover it, they don't allow the victims to ask for help, so because what they are going to say, the people, if they find out that their daughter, their sister is abused. And we face this. still. That's why we making this mobile unit, because this especially happens in the countryside. You know, these small communities, close communities, that is not easy for somebody to say, I am abused.
And yet a lot of people in those communities are very well aware of what is going on. And I guess there are more teachers as well who are trained to spot signs of abuse in families by talking to the children, because even if the children themselves are not being abused, it could be that they're witnessing abuse at home.
Yes. Sometimes, to say, is the children that they tell the teachers, or sometimes are the children that they call to the helpline, the 1440.
Well, good for them.
To ask for help. Yes. Of course, the children for us are always victims.
Yes, because even if they're not physically abused, the psychological impact is tremendous. Maria, I hope you're able to continue with this work, because I know that when I first spoke many years ago to one of your predecessors, it was, as we've just discussed, very much swept under the carpet. So we're bringing it out into the open, which is where it needs to be dealt with, and I wish you the best of luck in continuing your work at the Association for the Prevention and Handling of Violence in the Family. Many thanks. And that was Maria Cușu, who is the president of SPAVO, the Association for the Prevention and Handling of Violence in the Family. And to recap, the helpline number is 1440. There's an SMS helpline on 99984042 for people who are in danger and don't find it safe to talk. It's also addressed, that number, to people with special needs in speech. And the live chat service can be accessed via the website www.domviolence.org.cy.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
In Brussels yesterday, the Strategic Dialogue on the Future of Agriculture in the EU was launched. We'll be hearing from its chair, Professor Peter Struschneider, but first of all, an introduction from the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
And I'm very glad to see you all here. I'm glad to see representatives from our farmers, farm workers, rural communities, who are the custodians of our best traditions and who bring life to our countryside. We have also the industries around the table, you who put the food on the table. We have members of consumers and environmental groups, because all of society cares about the countryside and cares about our food. But also the financial sector and the academia are here in this room. So indeed a very diverse group, but all stakeholders in the same field. And I'm sure that in the coming days and weeks we will have many more stakeholders that will send us our thoughts, their ideas, their proposals. They will share their ideas with us, and we want to listen and ask you to discuss and to develop scenarios for the future. Basically, it is about describing the way forward. And I want first and foremost to thank all of you that you are dedicating your really precious time with us, and that you're also sharing your expertise and your knowledge and hopefully your ideas for the future with us. Yesterday evening, I very much liked our start at the informal dinner. And what I took away from the meeting yesterday, or the informal dinner yesterday evening, is that we all have the same sense of urgency, that things have to improve, and that we have to find a new way forward and common and lasting solutions for the problems that you're all very much aware of. You will discuss under the leadership of Professor Struschneider Professor Strohschneider, let me once again thank you very much that you're having accepted this challenge. This is wonderful, and I'm very grateful for that. Now your task. Your task is of crucial importance. It is thanks to European agriculture, that is the men and women who work the land, that Europe has the healthiest and the highest quality food in the world. Our farmers operate on a daily basis in a very competitive global market. You are often the most vulnerable part in the value chain. And of course, you deserve a fair remuneration. Our aim is to support your livelihoods and to guarantee European food security. Each of you have a role to play, each of you from, of course, your own perspective. Consumers will have a role to play as their choices drive innovation and demand. Parents, for example, are looking for healthy food for their children. They choose very carefully. Young people increasingly ask for more sustainable food. Food retailers and processors are equally crucial. You have to compete globally, and you have to act locally. You are responding to consumer preferences. Many of you stand up for animal welfare and biodiversity. And many of you defend the interests of the well, less of, for example, by fighting food waste. I listened very carefully to you yesterday. And it is thanks to all of you, each and everyone at his or her place, that we have to overcome the difficult questions ahead of us. But it's also thanks to all of you and each and everyone that we did overcome already very difficult times. If we think back at the pandemic or at the energy crisis or the food crisis, both triggered by the Russian aggression in Ukraine. We have also suffered from high inflation. Both agricultural inputs and food were affected by that. So we had already difficult times to overcome together, and it is amazing to see that Europe's agri-food sector showed a remarkable resilience in all of this. In addition, we are all making tremendous efforts to contribute to our collective goals of the European Green Deal. It's existential, because we all live with nature, we all live from nature, and while we certainly may not always see eye to eye on all issues, we all agree that the challenges are without any question mounting. Now, be it the competition from abroad, be it over-regulation at home, be it climate change or the loss of biodiversity, or be it demographic decline, just to name a few of the challenges we have been also discussing yesterday. What agri-food in Europe needs is a long-term perspective to face these challenges, a predictable way forward. And to forge this way forward, that is your task, the task of the 27 individuals that are here in this room. I hope that you will build the trust to appreciate each other's perspectives and to find common solutions for the future of agriculture in Europe. This dialogue aims to find a new consensus on issues which we all struggle with. For example, how can we elevate the standard of living for farmers and the attractiveness of rural communities? How can agriculture be sustainable within the planetary boundaries? How can we better harness knowledge and technology? How can we enhance Europe's food system for a competitive, thriving future? These are just some of the questions that we are facing. Now, finding a consensus and a common view on the way forward is certainly not an easy task. I'm fully aware of that. But I also think it is an immense opportunity that we have here. An opportunity to shape the future and an essential part of the economy of tomorrow. It's an opportunity to preserve an essential part of our European soul, our way of life. because we all depend on our countryside and we all live with nature and in nature. So today I want to ensure you that the vision, or perhaps the advice or the concrete recommendations that you will agree on by summer will impact the work of the coming years. I trust you. I rely on your expertise and on your knowledge, your ideas. I'm very much looking forward to working with you. And I'm wishing all of us bon courage, good luck, and a lot of trust in the coming weeks and months for this important work. Thank you very much. And with that, I would hand over the floor to, officially, Professor Schneider. And from now on, I'm in a listening mode, and you're the boss.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President, for the honor to invite us, for the honor to open your house for this very important endeavor. Madam President, ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the strategic dialogue, the task that the President of the Commission has set us is by no means trivial. On the contrary, it's quite challenging. On the one hand, because the four main questions that will guide our dialogue encompass numerous and very complex and also controversial aspects. The perspectives of European farmers and rural communities are by no means uniform in economic terms. We will have to think very seriously about how the very differentiated forms of European agriculture can be related to planetary and ecological boundaries. Scientific and technological innovation in mechanical and genetic engineering, in digitization and agrochemicals will offer enormous opportunities, but at the same time will hardly be available without any risk, which will have to be shaped socially and politically. We will have to describe food security and nutrition quality in Europe in global contexts and trading systems, which are characterized by a plethora of rapidly changing tasks and geopolitical conflicts of interest. On the other hand, these issues are linked to an overarching goal, which the President has described as overcoming polarization in agricultural and environmental politics through our common dialogue, which she has described as reconciling, which is not a trivial word itself, which she has described as reconciling economic competitiveness and responsible climate, nature, and environmental protection. In all of this, it cannot be overlooked, and I therefore do not want even to conceal it. It cannot be overlooked that our mandate leads right into the middle of a comprehensive process of civilizational change. For this, the term Great Transformation became widely in use, and of course, such a massive transformation will not succeed without major conflicts. Such conflicts can be seen, for example, in the protests by farmers in numerous European countries right now, or in the youth climate movement, or in the apocalyptic semantics that are often prominent: farm death, climate death, species extinction. This is a sort of death semantics that dominates public discourse on our problem field. Major conflicts, which can also be seen in changes of society's attitudes towards agriculture, brought about by major structural and economic changes in agriculture and rural areas, brought about by public debates on environmental protection, nature conservation, climate mitigation, animal protection, and the economic prospects of farms. Major conflicts that can also be seen in the fact that debates about different nutritional styles are increasingly taking on the fervour of cultural battles. It is within this framework, which I only sketch out here in a few lines, that we want to try to develop a consensual draft, a common vision, a proposal for the further development, for the future development of European agricultural and food industry policies, a proposal that is convincing or at least acceptable to the various stakeholders, and that is not without any concrete political impact in the end. And let me express my great gratitude to all of you for embarking on this somewhat adventurous common journey over the next few months. This journey will take us through all kinds of shallows, and it is probably not at all risky to predict some of the areas of conflict in which we will find ourselves along the way. We will probably have to discuss how agriculture, food, nutrition from plants to meat and fish, trade, rural energy, rural environments, energy and environmental policies, how these policies should actually be organized so that agricultural and environmental policy do not perceive each other in a win-lose constellation in which an environmental policy success is always an agricultural policy defeat, and vice versa. How these policies should be organized so that agricultural landscape is not decisive only for rural areas, but for our view on Europe and on the surface, the face of Europe, so that competition becomes a broad field, as it is increasingly important in the agricultural and food systems to balance quality and quantity competition and extend this not only to product quality but also to process quality of food production. To shape these policies so that it does not exclusively promote expansion of farm units and fields or freezing structures and intensification and standardization of production forms or marketing standards and uniformity of regional agricultural structures, but that these policies rather develop resilient diversity of formats and types of agricultural production, from business models to crop rotation to the structural richness of the agricultural landscape in vital rural areas. How to shape these policies so that they make cost externalization, including the overuse of the commons, that they make cost externalization as difficult as possible and make re-internalization of external costs more likely. Of course, here, as in all other questions, the devil is in the detail. In the questions of balancing conflicting goals and conflicting interests, in the development of political interventions, in the adjustment of their intended effects and their unanticipated side effects, in administration, implementation, legal structures, impact monitoring, and so forth and so forth. We will presumably not be able to discuss all of these detailed questions that we come across on our adventure trip. And we certainly won't be able to entirely solve them at first hand. Nevertheless, I'm convinced that the strategic dialogue we are starting today, that it can succeed.
That was Professor Peter Struschneider, Chair of the Strategic Dialogue on the Future of Agriculture in the European Union.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.